Good morning, everybody. It sure is a delight to be here at this centennial, once-in-a-lifetime event of MWIA. So it's my pleasure to speak to the first 4 decades of the association. Right. So there's so many events and activities that happened at the beginning. The first 20 years started off with many new introductions to getting women involved in the affairs of various nations. So you can see the US Senate gave its first Distinguished Medal, allowing the Senate bill, allowing women to vote for the first time. And by the year 1919, when this association was started, only 4 countries had female medical associations: the US, the UK, India, and Japan. Oh, and Sweden, I'm told. This was information from the book, Dorothy's book. So in New York, in October 1919, there was a meeting attended by 140 women from 16 countries. And they there decided to form this international association. So they formed a constitution which was officially inaugurated, giving birth to the Medical Women's International Association. At the inauguration, there were 200 women present, but the constitution came into effect at the next meeting in London, which was then considered to be the first MWIA Congress. And the inaugural president was Dr. Esther Lovejoy. Subsequent to that, they held congresses in 29 in Paris, in 34 in Stockholm, where the MWIA Northern European Regional Group was formed, in Edinburgh in 1937. And as usual, at these meetings, they identified issues of poor communication which was affected by all the politicking that was happening in the world at the time. The presidents for those periods were Lady Florence Barrett from 1924 to 29, Dr. Lathany Threa Landry in 1929 to 34, Dr. Alma Sandquist, 34 to 37, and Dr. Louise Martingale. So these are pictures that we have in our collection of these illustrious women. Then came World War II. Started in 1939, and medical women were conscripted. And the UK started the policy of equal pay for men and women, medical women. In 1941, women were given temporary appointments in the Indian Medical Service. And the world politics increasingly affected the activities of MWIA. And the number of associations had fallen to 19 by 1936, as communication was difficult and there were lots of changes in income of many women. Okay. From 1949 to 1958, there was a Korean War which took place. Then in 1954, the United Nations Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, granted MWIA a consultative status as a non-governmental agency, and that status we still hold to date. In 1949, the American Women's Association started the annual Blackwell Medal in honor of Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, who was a woman with outstanding performance in the field of medicine. Then in 1952, a lady doctor called Dr. Virginia Apgar, I'm sure a lot of you have heard her name. In medical school, we were told of Apgar scores for the assessment of newborns, and she was a medical woman. So she was inducted into the National Hall of Fame in the US in 1994. Then Dr. Rita Levi Moniacini was an Italian neurophysiologist, and she isolated the nerve growth factor in 1952 and was co-winner of the 1986 Nobel Prize in Medicine, a medical woman. She later on became an Italian senator for life and her contributions to science, but she died in 2012 at the age of 103. Then if you've heard of the Jonas Salk vaccine for polio, well, Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, with her team, worked on the development of this in 1955. These are all very famous medical women with names that are associated with a lot of the things that we use currently. In 1952, Edith Jones became the first African-American student to enroll in what was at the time a segregated medical school. Today, African-American students don't have the problems that she had in those days in the US. And as in most places, the number of women graduates in medical schools is increasingly becoming more than the men. So we, as medical women, we stand before the world today as the fruit of all the efforts of these wonderful and courageous women who have challenged the ideas of their time. So these are the congresses. In 1950, Philadelphia. In 1954, Italy. In 1958, London. And their themes are all very relevant. The presidents are, as you see on the list, Dr. Rice from Netherlands, Dr. Reid from US, Dr. DeLay from Italy, and Dr. Aitken from the UK. These are the famous women. So in the last decade, the official emblem that we currently use, she heals with the hands of a woman, of a mother, was adopted in 1960. At that time, there was still a very low number of medical students who were female in the US. There was still male preference, and there was active male selection. And this was typical in many countries, because it was not thought that women could perform as men. By 1968, female medical student numbers had risen. In the UK, they accounted for 20 to 25% of all medical students. In 1964, a female physician called Dr. Tausig was awarded the Medal of Freedom for her work on cyanotic heart diseases in children, and in 1965 became the first woman president of the American Heart Association. And so I present to you the first 4 decades of the history of our illustrious association. Thank you.